Okay, so we're gonna make some other floaters too. I'll show you a couple of my favorite ones, which are like the simplest ones to make, but I really like them. One is just half a sphere inverted, which is really dumb, but it's really cool. So I just make a sphere, and the nice thing, I'm using the other keyboard, it's weird. Uh, if you make a sphere has a nice little option on the bottom here called hemisphere. By default, it's set to 0. If you set it to 0.5, it'll just cut off half of your sphere, which is pretty sweet. So I do that. I rotate it all the way around, so it's 180 degrees. Convert it to an edible poly, and then I select that little vert that's in there and just delete it. And now, right now, my sphere is inside out, right? And I know that because I cut it in half. Now, by default, Max doesn't show you that it's inside out really well. But obviously in games and when you start bringing it over, that's going to be a big problem. So if you ever want to see what your stuff looks like properly with like single-sided stuff, when you have a mesh selected, you can go to the display panel up on the top right and put backface call on, and it'll actually show you what what it looks like. I showed this to someone who doesn't do 3D Max, and it blew their mind away that something can only exist from one direction. It's like it was like a life-changing experience for them. It was cool. Like, no, things can't only exist from one angle. Yeah, they weren't even high. It was crazy. So with that, what we can do is we can just flip the normals on this. So normal is the direction that a polygon is facing. So by default, all polygons have a single normal facing one direction, so they're all single-sided. We can render them double-sided in engines and things like that, but there's a lot of problems with that. But you can flip your normals whenever you want. So I'm just going to go to my sphere. I'm going to go to polygon mode. I'm going to hit Control-A to select everything. And under Edit Polygons, there's a little button called Flip, and Flip will just flip your normals. So now you have an inverted sphere, which is really hard to look at sometimes because it just doesn't make sense.
Trippy as balls.
It's really trippy as balls, yeah. And so what we're going to do is right now, if I look at this on the top-down view on my thing, it'll just kind of look like a sphere, right? It doesn't quite read as well. Oh, what the hell did I hit? Select from scene. Oh, weird. So by default, it just kind of looks like a sphere because the way lighting goes, it's really hard to tell whether something's in or out. So we're going to give it a nice lip to kind of show that, hey, this is on a flat surface and it bevels in. It's kind of like these little button things in there, but it's more round. So what we're going to do is we're going to select this guy. We're going to select the border selection set here, the third one. And border will just select anything that's an open edge. So if I click it, it'll select all of that. If I switch to my scale tool, I can hold shift and scale outwards, and it'll give me a flat plane on there. Bless you. So you'll kind of get a little flat guy like that. And then what we'll do is we'll chamfer this inside edge here. So, well, that's not doing what I want. Oh, I forgot. Sometimes when you do a hemisphere, sometimes it puts double edges in here for you. Just because that's exactly what everybody wants. So you might have to just double click and hit Control Backspace and just remove one of the edges. It's really dumb. I don't know why it does that. So with one edge, just chamfer it as much or as little as you like. You know, get that little guy in there. Ah, shit. And now when we look at it from the top, it'll actually look like it has an edge, it buckles in, and then curves back in there. So it's kind of cool. The nice thing about spheres and things like that is they just read really nicely with lighting and stuff like that, or whatever. So they're nice little things to have, and you can always play around with these guys too. You don't have to have them, you know, perfectly round like this. You could always take this guy, duplicate him. You can duplicate a mesh just by holding shift and dragging. And then go into here, and you could just start removing some things. I could remove the center, and maybe even that edge there, and then I'll have a flat kind of base for my hemisphere here. There we go. So you can start having some funky looking stuff like that. And remember, when you are making floaters or any of these things, there's nothing wrong with, you know, we've been kind of modeling everything almost out of one object exclusively so far. But you can always model out some other stuff. So I'm going to model a cylinder on top of this guy here. Add a bunch of edges. So I made a cylinder. I connected them in the middle by dragging and selecting all these verts, hitting my connect shortcut. I'm just going to delete half of these guys, select my border, and then extrude it this way, and just get like a cool looking thingamajig here. I'm going to use the outline tool to shrink this down a little bit. Maybe I'll scale this up so it matches that a little better. And then I will continue just chamfering the hell out of stuff. So now I have like a hemisphere digging in with this little dude here intersecting this thing, just to give it a little bit of an interesting shape. Again, the more overlap and intersecting and edges that you leave on this stuff, like this little edge here, the more lighting you'll get, and you know, the better things will catch and stuff like that. So just play around with it, get you know, get creative. There we go. Now I have a bit more of an edge there. Probably want to chamfer or turbo smooth this guy because I could see some faceting. And if I do have multiple objects and I would like to attach them, I can select this outer ring. Under Edit Geometry, I can click Attach, and then select my other object, and then just merge them together. So I don't have to worry about selecting both of them. What's happening?
It's just turbo smooth.
Not working?
Just a couple of my edges aren't doing right. Or doing something like that.
Do you want to take a look?
I'll keep trying to see what's going on because I think it's just my loops.
Alright. Yeah, those loops will get you. Alright, and then the other one, which is very similar to the whole sphere thing, is if you go under Standard Primitives, if you make a... Oh, it might be under Extended Primitives. Actually, we'll leave that for the next